Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Meet the Candidates Forum brought to you by the Nantucket Civic League. My name is Scott Wilson. I'm the co-president of the Civic League, and I also serve as the chair of the Naw Shop Homeowners Association, which is one of the Civic League's 25 associations on the island. Today's annual Meet the Candidates Forum is one of our traditional annual events. It furthers one of the Civic League's core missions of encouraging participation in town government. Our aim today is twofold: to give the candidates direct access to you, the voters, to make their cases, and to help you, the voters, make informed choices when you go to the polls on May 20th. We strongly encourage all voters to go to the poll and vote on Election Day. Today's program is being broadcast live on Zoom, and it's also being carried live on NCTV 8. A recording of this forum will be available as an on-demand YouTube video immediately following the conclusion of the broadcast. The Nantucket Civic League is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation and is nonpartisan. We sponsor this event without favor or prejudice toward any candidate. We invited all the candidates who are involved in contested elections, and we are very grateful that they all accepted our invitation. Our thanks go out to these noble candidates, as well as the other candidates who are running unopposed, for committing their time and energy to run for public office and their willingness to serve if elected. Today, we're hearing from 4 candidates for the 2 open seats on the select board, 2 candidates for the open 1-year seat on the planning board, and 2 candidates for the open seat on the school committee. We are also joined today by Dean Geddes, the senior reporter and news editor of the Inky, and Jason Graziadei, the editor-in-chief of the Nantucket Current, who will put the first few rounds of questions to the candidates. Each of our 3 sessions, the select board, the planning board, and the school committee, will be held separately in that order. For each session, I will first introduce the candidates and allow each candidate to provide a 2-minute opening statement of their qualifications and their position on issues of their interest. After that, we'll turn to questions from our media panel, and after that, we will turn to our live audience Zoom questions. At the end of the question portion of each session, the candidates will have an opportunity to make a final closing statement. For our viewing audience, we want your questions. To submit a question, simply click on the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and type your question. It can be directed to one specific candidate, or it can be directed to all the candidates on a specific panel. Please try to submit your questions as we begin each portion of our program, and I will try to remember to remind you as we start each new portion. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. One final word. The Civic League is about issues, and we will not allow the candidates to level accusations of personal attacks on the other candidates, nor anyone else. I will interrupt any such statements. Please stay focused on the issues. We also ask that the audience questions be focused as well. Neither ad hominem remarks or rants we receive on the Zoom chat will be read. We thank you all for your cooperation in this regard. Okay, let's get started. We'll hear from all 4 candidates who are running for the 2 open seats on the select board, and they are now invited to give their opening statements. A random generator gave us the following order. Brooke Gibbs will go first, followed by incumbent Brooke Moore, followed by Mary Chalk, and finally incumbent Matt Fee. Mr. Gibbs, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Hello, Nantucket. My name is Brooke Willow Gibbs. I'm 50. I'm a plumber, a handyman, a caretaker, and the guy that everybody goes to when they need help. I have my master's in agricultural economics, focused in rural sustainability, specifically because I knew I'd have to come back here someday and do what I'm doing today. I'm 1 credit short of my MBA. I have my marketing bachelor's. I have naval certifications in electronics. And as a kid, I grew up testing game simulations. I've lived here for the last 15 years. Did not grow up here and did not go to school here, but been coming here since I was a year old. So I'm pretty familiar with the way things are in the community and what things we need to be addressing and what things we need to be having in our leadership. I think first and foremost that accountability is what needs to happen. We need to have someone that's proactive. We need to have someone who's familiar with what's going on. We need to have someone who has the background from the island, that's for the island and not for anyone off island and their interests in our community. We need to be first. I've been working a long time on issues such as the PFAS, STRs, housing, how we're going about building and what we're going about building, and for who and for why. I have a lot of solutions that I'd like to give you, and I feel that my contribution to Nantucket will be as great as my family's has been from the beginning. So I hope that you'll vote for me and at least hear what I have to say and what I have to offer to the community, because we really need change and we need it now. And everybody knows what's going on, and we are supposedly the top place in the world, so I think we should act like it and live like it. And we need to change. So I hope all you consider what I have to say and what I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Brooke Moore.
Thank you, Scott. It has been my honor to serve on the select board these last 3 years. Each and every day of my first term has been a learning experience, and I'm excited to take that experience into a second term. My job as a select board member is to listen to diverse perspectives, evaluate them in the context of any issue before me, and do my very best to make choices that balance the sometimes competing wishes of very different constituencies. A wise friend told me early on that I would never please everyone with any decision I made in this role, and that has pretty much proven true. It has been important to me that I consider the needs of our entire community, not just the desires of those who feel most comfortable making their voices heard. Nantucket is a remarkable community, and the qualities that set us apart also create unique challenges. Homeownership is now beyond the reach of young people, whether they're Washoeshorth or from generational island families, and we must continue to work to create an adequate supply of attainable housing opportunities for people who want to make Nantucket their forever home. I will work collaboratively with the Planning Board and Affordable Housing Trust to grow the inventory of deed-restricted year-round housing. Another goal for me is to take care of our neighbors in need. I have prioritized human services within the Select Board strategic plan and want to ensure that there are enough resources available to folks who are struggling or need resources to make their lives help them thrive. There's so many pressing needs and challenges facing Nantucket as we move into the future. I think a lot about what shared sacrifices we need to make when it comes to concerns about development, traffic, the environment, and coastal resilience. I hope we can create more opportunities to talk with one another about the values that underpin the different ideas we have about the future. And I believe we can find more common ground if we listen to the whys of those whose opinions differ from our own. I very much look forward to answering your questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. And before we go on, I have to confess I made a mistake. I referred to 4 candidates. There are 5 candidates for the select board. The 5th is Cliff Williams, of course, who's here. Just my typographical mistake. I apologize for that. Next up is Mary Chalk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Chalk, and I first came to Nantucket 56 years ago, and I have owned my home in Nantucket for decades. You may know me as a physical therapist, a chef, an artist, a volunteer at our island home, or a volunteer at the warming place. I am the mother of 2 sons and now have 2 grandchildren. I enjoy walking, cycling, and sailing on Nantucket. As one of the founders of the group Nantucket Residents Against Turbines, I was one of the earliest voices sounding the alarm about the offshore wind projects proposed and under construction southwest of the island. But I want to run for select board for many other reasons too. I want to improve the two-way communication between the citizens and our town government. I feel that in some cases, the people's preferences have not been heard. I will advocate for more public input, transparency, and accountability. The current surge of development with its risk to our environment and infrastructure makes this a critical time and election. The offshore wind construction with the eventual 1,400 turbines is harming our island. Large sections of the shattered blade remain on the seabed, polluting our water and beaches with fiberglass and microplastics. Our marine life is washing up dead on our beaches at a rate never seen before. We must advocate for halting Vineyard Wind's construction and for the immediate removal of the remaining 60 defective blades. The proposed coastal resilience project should have further consideration. They need much more technical study and review of their impacts on our fragile environment and historic landmark designation. Our infrastructure has reached its limit. Our public water supply state of emergency from PFAS contamination, our overtaxed electrical grid with 2 recent major cable failures, the poor state of our roads, and our eroding waste treatment plant are all reasons to slow the surge of development. And I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mary. Next, we'll turn to Cliff Williams.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, the Civic League. I guess the question should be for today, or our introduction should be, why are we running? What are we doing? I was born and raised on Nantucket. I've worked in construction most of my life, while being in aviation for 43 years. I presently work at the FAA here at the Nantucket Airport. I'm the last technician for the FAA. Take care of the nav aids and communications. I was on the finance committee for 9 years. I was on the Island Home Committee. I was on the fire station committee. I've run 15 times, probably more than anybody, to try and get on the board of selectmen. The greatest thing about that is I think the same issues that challenged us on my first run still challenge us, which is one of the biggest reasons I continue to run, is that we have to put some of these problems to rest. We haven't been able to figure out the island home. I don't know why. I have my own ideas. The landfill, I think, is in crisis state. Our roads have deteriorated to the point where I'm not sure we can keep up. I just hope we can get back to the fundamentals and just try to solve some of these issues as a town. I know we're looking at coastal resiliency and all these other different issues, but I really think we should learn how to fix potholes and fix the landfill and fix the island home before we take on any other big challenges. And I look forward to your questions, and thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Matt Feet.
Hi, thank you. I was cleaning out my dad's, Judy's house. My dad had a bunch of financial things. I was cleaning that out last week and came across this, which was my 2001 when I first ran for the select board. And I didn't have gray hair and I was wearing a tie, and it was a different world then. But it's interesting looking back at it. I kind of agree with Cliff. A lot of the issues are the same. We need to build consensus, and we all care about what makes Nantucket unique. And, we have to figure out what we want to do as it shared as a community. I think when I first ran, I was a change candidate, and I was saying I'm not a politician at this point. I will say that I have become a politician. I realize you have to work with people to get things done. This is my 6th term, give or take. Over that time, we've done a lot of good things. The finance department, which was in shambles, has been corrected. I think the management has improved. I think what we're facing, though, is the result of, building more houses in the last 30 years than we did in the first 300. We're facing a tsunami of wealth, which is impacting the island and making changes, not all of them good. And they're impacting a lot of the different things that all of the previous candidates talked about. I think, that is, so the roads and issues like that, those are growth. The costs of growth are not linear. And all of a sudden, all the costs come due. So that is what we're facing is, and we continue to think that, we need a lot of growth. We need to grow. We need to let everybody hear. And in some ways, that is what's costing us. We are so fortunate. For example, we are so fortunate we didn't run sewer out to the whole island, which I served on a board that wanted to do that. We would be buried right now. So I think that, I bring an economics degree. I bring common sense, a lot of experience that I would like to continue on the board. I'm independent, and I hope that, people know me and they have strong feelings one way or the other, I believe. I would love to, I'm always, there's never a dull moment. I'm always learning something. I enjoy it, and I hope that I can continue for another 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Dean and Jason for questions. Dean, you'll go first. And on the basis that assuming your questions are for all the candidates, we'll reverse the order that they answer with this next question. So Matt will go first. So Dean, go ahead.
All right. Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank the candidates for being here. So we're fresh off of town meeting, and we just had a sense of the meeting question on this. But I want to know, do you think the town should continue to use resources to work on a potential change to a town council form of government? And what do you personally think would be better for the island, town council versus town meeting?
All right, thank you, Dean. I think we should continue to work on it. I think that the committee should finish its work and come up with, their recommendations. At this point, I am not in favor of it. I am scared that that if we had a town council with 5 or 7 or 9 of us, that issues could be in front of us every 2 weeks. I'm concerned that we would be outgunned, outmaneuvered. All the decisions seem to go, sort of lean toward the money, lean toward profit. And I think that things that, we only once a year, twice a year that we have to deal with one way or the other, that could be coming up every month. And I don't think that the town has the capacity or the ability to research and tackle those appropriately. So at this point, I think, and and I don't think the voters are going to give up their say on it anyway, but thank you.
Cliff Williams.
Yeah, I think that's the last ray of hope we have is town meeting. I think the good neighbor agreement even shows that, where maybe we gave too much power to the Board of Selectmen. We can't even rent a piece of land for more than 5 years without town meeting vote. So how do we do something like the good neighbor agreement? So if I was on the board, and I did the same thing when I was on the finance committee, when we had a big issue like that, I think it should be resolved by town meeting and let the people decide. I think when you go to a council, or as you can see from our federal government and our state government, there's a lot of issues that they just make for us that a lot of people don't agree with. I think the short-term rental fee was one of them, where we shot down the short-term tax on rentals for years, and then the governor came in one day and just swiped his pen, and guess what? We're paying the tax and we're paying the fee. So even though the town voted against it for so many times, so I think it gives up the last ray of hope for anybody to have any say or control getting rid of town meeting. So I would do it.
Thank you. Mary Chalk.
Yeah, at town meeting, I really love listening to everybody that speaks. I really learn a lot. I would like to see this continue, of course. And I also would like, when it's clear what the majority is, how they are feeling, that we don't keep revisiting that, so it's clear the majority of people there would like to continue the town meeting format and not go to town council. And I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. Brooke Moore.
So in answer to the question about allocation of resources to further any process toward changing town government, I would say as a sitting board member, the reason we put the sense of the meeting on both town meeting and the ballot was to discern whether there was a difference in the perspective of voters at town meeting about whether they would like to see the change, or at the ballot, say for people for whom town meeting is inaccessible, they could vote to make the change. So the jury's still out until we have the results from the ballot on this. But in terms of allocating money, if the town's not ready, I wouldn't allocate a single more dollar of town money. I would suggest to the people who think this is a good idea to promote it themselves, raise money to do it, and to raise more awareness and persuade the people that if it's a good idea. Personally, I have concerns about moving away from town meeting. There are inefficiencies in the process that create issues, and there's a governing sort of the town meeting process governs the pace of change, which I think can be a very good thing. So it's double-edged sword, but I do think that it is much more difficult for people in this day and age to participate in town meeting with the time commitment, and we're not getting all of the voices heard because of that. So hopefully we can, if we commit to town meeting, do some creative things about making it more accessible to a broader part of the community. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Brooke Gibbs.
I agree with previous candidates. I don't think we should move away from town meeting at all. I think it gives us all a voice, and it's a very small community, so we should always hear everything from all sides. I do think that we should look into having a mayor over the town manager so that the people can elect someone that they trust with the overall direction of the ship, and that everything is kept in check by everyone. I think that it might be a good idea to do a little research into adding representatives from each part of the island to boards and that kind of legislation or that kind of action, because certain people are affected differently by certain things, and I think that certain neighborhoods should have bigger says in certain things, certain ways, because it affects them more greatly. So I don't think we should move away from town meeting at all. It's intricate to the fabric of this community. I don't think we need to spend any more money on it. I think we should just possibly submit articles as to what we think our type of government should be in the future, or just do public feedback on it. I also think that we should have, instead of 2 town meetings a year, we should have 4, but 2 of them are just for discussions. They're not binding for any legislative actions or articles. They're just for public feedback, so we can have full discussions that aren't limited to 3 minutes in public on a weekly basis. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and hello to the candidates. So with respect to offshore wind, which is probably the topic we've talked about maybe the most over the past year at the select board, but following Vineyard Wind's blade failure in July 2024, the delay in notification to the town about the failure, as well as the February 2025 lightning strike, the ongoing removal of the 66 blades, as well as the petition, which I believe was submitted to the select board, signed by hundreds of island businesses and thousands of residents. Should the town remain in the good neighbor agreement with Vineyard Wind? Why or why not?
We'll start with Brooke Moore.
There we go. Unmute button. So the answer to that question is maybe. And fundamentally, what we have to do is assess what do we lose and what do we gain by exiting the Good Neighbor Agreement. And I think that there's some false expectations about getting out of the Good Neighbor Agreement leading to the end of Vineyard Wind that are unrealistic. And so as a select board member, I'm obliged to look at what are the avenues to do our best to protect Nantucket. And at this point in time, exiting the Good Neighbor Agreement there's no clear path to an exit from the Good Neighbor Agreement, achieving what folks want, which is to make Vineyard Wind go away, as I understand and I hear from them. That does not mean that there's plenty of room for advocacy and even legal action with regard to Vineyard Wind as it relates to the now known risk of blade turbine failures and the environmental risks. And we also always have to take into account the fact that the federal government guides offshore wind policy, not the Nantucket Select Board. And so I'm always taking into account and into consideration, what is the landscape, both at the state and federal level on this issue? And are there opportunities and windows to affect change? And I would say to you that under the Biden administration, we understood those opportunities were practically zero. That is not the case anymore, and I will do everything I can, given the current administration's position on offshore wind, to advocate strongly and make demands on Vineyard Wind, GE Vernova, and even the federal regulators to further protect Nantucket and make sure that our historic landmark and our environment is protected to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Mary Chalk.
Um, the facts around the Good Neighbor Agreement is that it does not only commit us to supporting Vineyard Wind, it reaches to 4 more Avangrid wind farm project, and so that have not broken ground yet. So we are committed to support over 500 turbines off our South Shore, which will be in our view shed. So yes, we need to leave this Good Neighbor Agreement. They have not held up to their commitments of the ADLS lighting. They took so long to communicate to us about the 2 disasters. So we are still having fiberglass and styrofoam wash up on our beach. I just found this the other day, and I put it in a glass of water, tightly screwed it, and shook it. And what we see are immediate breakdown into microplastics, really small particle of microplastics in fiberglass. So this is being absorbed. There's still large pieces of that blade on the seabed, breaking up and coming ashore. We need to get out of that Good Neighbor Agreement and turn and fight and join the other states along the East Coast who are actually being successful in keeping this off the communities. New Jersey has had tremendous success, New York. So far, Nantucket is the only community that has these, and some of the surrounding southern New England communities have these off our shores. And so it is imperative. Money is not going to save us from any settlement of lawsuits.
Thank you. Cliff Williams.
Yes, I've been kind of directly involved with just I want to say the legality of this. I was in Oklahoma for some training last summer, and I went to the radar division to find out about what studies were done in order to erect the windmills. And unfortunately, the Biden administration just bypassed a lot of them, and I think that's what the lawsuit from the local community, or I should say the private organization, was all about, is that they basically didn't follow the rules to begin with. There's been no study for the instrument landing system. I think I've stated this a couple times at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So I believe they've already breached the contract, and unfortunately, as Mary's stated, the state of Massachusetts still doesn't seem to care very much. They seem to be pro-wind, regardless of whether it makes money or doesn't make money. It's just going to create a legal mess for us. But I say we just do the good thing and break the agreement and do it based on the fact that I don't believe they've even followed the basics in order to erect these windmill fields. And of course, Dylan Fernandez said there was a bond in place when we first met with him years ago, and obviously that was waived. So now we've got a mess of who's going to clean up the mess. So I say we just move forward and get rid of the agreements, because, like I said, I think it's already been broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fee.
Yeah, the first thing is, I think the first thing is it's clear that they have not, it's clear that we were misled from the beginning about the size and the view and a lot of the different aspects. And, that is true. I think there's a misconception in the community that if we break the Good Neighbor Agreement, that, they won't be any more, that we can fight and we can stop them. That decision isn't going to be made by the state or made by us. That's made in Washington. That's made at a different level that we would have to influence. How do I say it? We as a community have the ability to do more than we're doing in the Good Neighbor. No one expected the wind turbine, the blade failure that we experienced, and we are working on that. But we have to be methodical and careful with this. We have to have a process that we go through, which is what we're doing to build our case. It would be easy, the easy thing, the thing that would feel good would be to, to break the agreement and start yelling from the highest trees, treetops, but that isn't going to necessarily get us the best result. The best result is going to be from making our case, building our case for various aspects, which I can't really get into here in this venue, but I think it would be, making our case and then bringing things forward that are going to meaningfully either stop future ones or protect us from future ones if we can't stop them, or make make compensation for tragedies that happen so stiff that if this does happen in the next 10 or 20 years, that we are protected. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from this is that we rolled this out as a government, as a policy before it was ready. And so we do have some, facts we have facts on our side. We have, but if we, sort of jump the gun on it and start making lawsuits to the wrong places at the wrong time and lose, then we are going to be, we will have made a mistake. I think at this point, the businesses that have been harmed should be reaching out to GE and to Vineyard Wind and starting to demand that they are compensated. I think that's something we hoped to do as a community. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. And so I think that there's issues like that. It's funny, some of the opponents to this, some of the newspapers are always saying, break the good neighbor. And if you go back and say, give me the advantage of breaking the good neighbor, I don't hear a lot of reasons yet. And I understand there are some, and eventually there will be, there may be or will be a reason for us to do that. But right now we should be building our case and making the points that we can within that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We'll close with Brooke Gibbs.
I agree with much of what Matt and Brooke have said. It's true. We really shouldn't jump the gun in reaction. I don't think we should have ever signed it in the first place. I think that we, like Matt said, rushed the implementation of the wind farm, and it's massive. I don't think that most people realize how delicate that thing will be in its lifespan. And I think that we have to do we have to be a lot more proactive in finding ways to fix it for ourselves than depending on them, because there's 5 of them for a reason and not one. And if it was one, then we could hold one person responsible. But hundreds of people on the island following different corporations trying to file claims against them for damages is, failure of our leadership and our local government to establish those rights for those people in the first place before signing any of the agreements. So I think that what we have to do is go forward and not back, learn from this, and either work with the state and the Fed and those companies to scale down what they're planning to implement, or to rationalize the expense of what they would have to do if a hurricane hit them at a category 4 or 5 and we had 60 to 100 blades on the shores. So I don't think we should have ever gone down this road in the first place, and we jumped the gun for green energy, and we need to think more before we act. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Dean Geddes for a second question from him.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to ask about Our Island Home. Do you think the select board should forge ahead with another attempt to get Our Island Home approved at town meeting, assuming it does well at the ballot? Or given the price tag, is it time to move on after a close but unsuccessful vote at this recent town meeting?
We're going to start with Cliff Williams.
Yes, like I said earlier, I was on the Island Home Committee years ago, and we went to Holyoke, Mass, and they had this spoken hub type facility where, just like a spoken hub, there was a middle room where you could lounge around and sit around, and it connected the other 4 or 5 sections of the facility. So each facility had its own sitting room, its own kitchen, and then it had, I think, 5 to 10 bedrooms. I think that would be the more reasonable way to build the island home. So you could do it in sections. I believe what really scared people was I think we failed when it came to the price tag. We started out, we spent a lot of money to come up with, what was it, $80 million. And then within months of going to town meeting. It went from 80 to 90 to 120. I think they actually printed it as 125, and by the time we get to town meeting, it was 135 million. So I think you just lose the confidence of the public. I think you need to really come in and come with some good numbers way ahead of time. And I think a gentleman stood up at town meeting and said he could build these things. He had friends that built them for $400,000 a room. We were at $3 million a room. So even though with the Nantucket factor, I believe we can be more reasonable than that. And I would love to focus on that as a select board member. And I think I could deliver it much cheaper than the crazy price of $135 million. So I don't think anybody wants to give up on it. They're looking for some leadership that can dial in the numbers and make us confident to feel like we're getting our money's worth. So I wouldn't give up on the Island Home.
Thank you. Mary Chalk.
I spent my professional career as a physical therapist working with this population, so I care very much. It's very emotional. There is always more than one solution, and we're being told this is it. This is the only solution. And we also, as a healthcare provider, I also have some knowledge about how complex reimbursement is for healthcare facilities and nursing homes. We rely on the Medicaid reimbursement, which is prone to change, going forward. There's that mix of patients, like who's private pay, who's Medicaid. And, we hear, well, nobody really, pays for it because you do some clever estate planning, and then you can qualify for Medicaid. But the truth is that Medicaid reimbursement, when I was working, only paid 50 cents on the dollar cost. And so the rest, to make that up, that will fall on the Nantucket taxpayers. We've never gotten a good answer about like how this very expensive nursing home is going to raise the daily rates, which will be reaching very soon, already $600 a day, the highest in Massachusetts. So going forward, there's a lot of unknowns. And, when I heard the Finance Committee withdrew their support, I mean, we really need to pay attention to that. And it would be great if at a select board meeting that we gave them some time to explain really why they withdrew their support. The taxpayers, the town, we're in the nursing home business right now, and it is so complex. And I really don't think it's a good idea to continue this. I hear it's very difficult to get a private, enterprise in to run it. But I'm not hearing the word impossible. And so I think we could come up with some creative ways to support privatizing their island home. And I love the setting where it is right now. The residents and staff and visitors love that view. They feel part of the pulse of the community. It's just such a wonderful way to provide care to our community, who have really worked so hard here, and it's our way of giving back. And I really would like to explore more, renovating that building. It's rarely fully occupied, if ever. And so perhaps, one wing at a time. There are 3 wings. Just some creative solutions. And as a member of the public, I have not been given the information to really look at this objectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Brooke Moore.
The island home situation is probably one of the hardest things that personally I've been back and forth on my personal opinion about whether we should do it or not. The number is huge. Every passing time we go to redesign or rethink, the cost of construction goes up. And my fear is if we go back at it again, we're going to pay more for something less. I agree with Mary that the unpredictability of the financial operations of the nursing home industry into the future is something that I'm very worried about saddling future generations with. Beyond what we know now, which is a price tag for constructing it and an operating budget that we have now that's already subsidized by an override. So that is probably my gravest concern, is that we make that investment and then the financials of being in the nursing home business get even more detrimental or more of a burden to taxpayers than they are now. As a social worker, I wish that we could take care of people through the end of life. That would be my ideal. But for the finance committee, I can tell you the reason that they changed their mind was the additional price tag that came through. The other thing that's really important for me to say is that the process of getting firm numbers for construction costs money to begin with, and you get them and they don't hold for months at a time. And that's the unfortunate process. Construction costs are rising so fast that when you get bids, that they are only available for a period of time. So the process by which we arrived at this and the number changing is because of the nature of that procurement process and getting bids and getting numbers that we can count on. And because we used a different type of procurement this time around, the voters were given a real number, a fixed contract that's available to us to sign just for a few more weeks. So the question about should we take another pass at this? Again, the ballot vote, I think, will be really important in determining whether people really didn't understand that this was the plan. And maybe we're a little complacent about coming to town meeting and make sure it passed. So I would be interested in reevaluating, should the ballot vote be significantly and dramatically different from what town meeting vote was? And then, of course, I hate to say let's spend more money on making plan, I don't know how many, but it's really, really hard and emotional to shut the door on caring for our elders in their later years. Sorry. That's it.
Thanks. Brooke Gibbs.
Thank you, Scott. I think that the solution to this is to not spend the $135 million. I think we can put an identical landmark building in front of the old one and build a new one right there, right next to Marine Home Center, right in front of the old one that mirrors right in front of the old one that mirrors the new one. I think that we could then renovate the old one. I think that we need to come together as a community since we're in this unique situation and volunteer our time and our skills to do this. I mean, everyone that lives here year round makes a fortune, and the trades should be the first to be stepping up. So I think that if every plumber gave 2 weeks and every electrician gave 2 weeks and every guy who works in the industries gave 2 weeks of their time to this, we could bring the cost down to virtually nothing. And we could, work our way around the bureaucracy of the state's necessity for us to hire it or pay prevailing wages on these projects, because prevailing wages here is a lot higher than it is on the mainland, so that's why the cost is a lot higher. So there's other ways for us to do this. We need to be smart about it, and we need to think outside the box and not allow just the dollars and the emotional attachments to the building for affect the ours for our parents. So there's a solution for this, and it's giving yourself instead of trying to get rich off of the equation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Fee.
Yeah, I think the question was, should the select board continue forward, spend more money and continue forward? And I would say that depends on the vote at the ballot. I think that's going to give us direction. If it's positive in a stronger sense, then I think we could be, maybe there's looking at creative ways. Maybe there's a fundraising campaign. The people who have sort of voters remorse right now can help in that. Maybe we're shrinking the size and keeping it where it is. I think the number 135 is too much. It's, retrospect, hindsight's 2020. I wish we had, gone through and done this 10 years ago. It was, half the price and, would have got the same or better result. But that's, we are stuck where we are. The idea of costs is, that is the prevailing wage issue. But at this point, it's also a tariff issue. It's a federal government policy issue. Part of the big increase was because of the uncertainty of the tariffs that were placed on us. So at the same time that the materials to build this are getting more expensive, the potential reimbursement from Medicaid is going the other way. So we have some really tough decisions. Even if we could figure out, how to build it cheaper and where to scale it down, et cetera, do we really do it if Medicaid's going the other way? I can be critical of the town government or myself when need be, but in this case, I think the town has done a amazing job at gathering the information, holding various public information sessions, and understanding the various costs of different types of island homes, different types of ways of doing this. And so I think that the town should be praised for that. I think the other thing I do think we should do if we figure out a way to go forward, which would be great, is we have to, if someone's on the select board, any of us, we need to figure out what union concessions need to be worked out ahead. We do not want to be voting for the town, for the island home, and then going to the union and asking for changes. That should be first while we have leverage. And it should be, we're building a great thing, we're going to treat you well, and we're going to do this, but we need these changes. And I think if we could do that, that's an important thing to follow up on if we find a path forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn to Jason now for his second question.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So one of the select board's primary duties is assessing the performance of the town manager. We just saw that process, be completed with a review and a new contract for town manager Libby Gibson. So to each of the candidates, what is your assessment? Where is the town being managed well, and where are there needs for improvement from that you can see? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll start with Mary Chuck.
Well, we're at the cusp of our tourist season right now, and I'm not hearing any real talk at the select board meetings about that. How we're preparing for our tourists and visitors, how we're going to, make it a good experience for them. And I drive around the roads, and we encourage people to leave their cars behind and bike and walk or take the bus. And our roads are really terrible for cyclists. If you look at the sides of the roads, there's potholes, there's manhole covers sticking up, there's like gullies. We don't look shiny, we don't look good. And this is our major economy. And I just think we should be talking about it at this point in May. Also, I really think the public's right to input and this transparency and accountability of the town government really needs some work. I mean, the select board meetings being limited for 3 minutes and to be cut off so harshly, and I truly believe that the public comment period of these meetings is the most important part. I don't think it would kill anyone to give 5 minutes for public input. I've noticed the select board meetings are getting shorter. I know they used to go on for hours and hours, and that's tough. But, this week it was an hour, and they were cutting off people who weren't done and really had a lot of information and sharing to do. And a few more minutes would not have hurt. to allow that to happen. So we need more two-way communication also. If for someone, I'll raise questions and then I have to wait a week to maybe get answers. But, 3 minutes, often I can't clarify my thoughts, give enough background. They may not be clear, and it just gets lost. And so there should be some two-way communication at the select board meetings. If they have to defer to the lawyers, well, I understand that, say that. But so I think those things can be improved at town government and come from the top, from the town manager. So thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Cliff Williams?
Yes, I believe, unfortunately, I think the town administrator has taken the philosophy of the path of least resistance for her position. Seems to be the better one. Mary just made a great point about the input and transparency and the ability to have more of a say. I realize this whole 3-minute thing at the Board of Selectmen's meeting has stemmed from the problem we had with the African Meeting House years ago, where I believe the lawsuit's still in place that was created for the lawsuit stemmed from that very, very problem. So they've tried to resolve it by not letting people speak anymore, or just speak for 3 minutes and then we don't have any rebuttal. So I don't know if that policy is a result of the town manager or the town attorneys, but if we really don't want people to have a say, like I said earlier, well, I didn't say it earlier, I guess. My sister had an article about having an ombudsman so that you could challenge town administration when you believe you were not giving the right answer or you believe they were working against you. We voted that in several times, and yet we haven't implemented it. So I think a lot of people just feel they don't have a say, and I really believe that's been put forth by town administration. So it reflects back also on town meetings. So this is one of the reasons I don't want to get rid of town meeting. This is one of the reasons we wanted an ombudsman, is I just don't believe town administration has been really transparent or motivated by allowing people to speak freely, or when they have a problem, come to a conclusion. They feel like they're just cast aside. So I think that's a reflection on the town administrator's performance. So I just say I think we have a lot of work to do, yeah, I think it's just it's the structure of our town also. I mean, we have a municipal calendar, so the town administrator knows just what she has to do every year. She doesn't have to be innovative. She doesn't have to be a Jack Welch coming into GE. They just follow the calendar. I was on the finance committee, so I know how it works. And that's all we really have to do, and then come up with some solutions. I think unfortunately, the Island Home failed because for that very reason. Like I said earlier, we didn't come up with a number and a clear number soon enough, and I think we lost confidence in the people, and for every right. Not to go off track, but the Island Home was only 7% of our budget back in the 70s, and now it's actually less than that. So I believe people have always supported the Island Home, and I think that's been masked by the fact that it was made an enterprise fund, and now there's no real reason to complain about it because it's supported with an override. So anyway, I would say that we have a lot of work to do with town administration. Thank you.
Thanks. Matt Fee.
Okay, I think the question was, do we support the town manager? What do we feel about Libby? Because we evaluate her. I would say that Libby is usually improved from when I first started in the early 2000s till now. She has taken a lot of classes, done a lot of education. She has learned the importance of hiring and putting those people in place, and then, overseeing them and making sure they do their jobs properly. And when she does that right, she sees how much easier it is for the town to do it, to operate. I think that, and also that those people then have ownership. I think one of her weaknesses before was not assigning ownership and holding people accountable. She's learning how to do that and is doing a better job of that. I think a lot of the things that other people have slipped into here are different issues. The idea of transparency. A lot of times, when I hear transparency, it's you're not doing what I want you to do. The select board, if we're elected, we are there to look at all the information, to ensure the staff does the work they're supposed to do, and then and represent the town. I think sometimes people try to tie the select board's hands at town meeting or through actions, which really are unnecessary, illegal, and don't really work. I think that has a lot to do with the trust, making the trust. I would say, where do we have to improve? I think where we have to improve is I think we have a permitting department. I don't think we have a planning department. I think I think some of those need to come back under town government, under assistant town manager or town manager, and we need to set up a planning department that is doing the analysis and the numbers and all the stuff that needs to go into planning. I took a couple seminars a couple months ago, and what it talked about with these issues is you get that, it's too late when it's at the town meeting or when it's even at a select board level, public input is too late. The input needs to be in the process when you're building the plan, putting a plan together, making a decision. So by the time it gets to the select board, it gets to town meeting, it's already understood. And people they've already had all their, they've already talked about all the things that are important. You've adjusted everything you can adjust, and so that people will accept it. I think that's the step that we're missing. And I think the idea that there's just a calendar and Libby can just follow a calendar, it sounds great, but it's unrealistic because there's so many changes that happen. No one expected PFAS. None of us expected a blade turbine failure, etc. There's things that jump up that come up immediately, dog bites or whatever, and you have to deal with them. And so I think that, I think Libby is, I think she could take a little more interest in zoning and the impacts of that. And I think that would improve the town and improve our management. I also think if and when we put the town building all in one place, there'll be a better synergy and the offices will work better together. So thank you.
Thank you. Brooke Gibbs.
Thank you. I think that the select board going forward with her renewal of her contract as well as her evaluation was completely inappropriate without public input first. I think that the majority of her review is skewed positively, and I don't agree with much of it. I would go into examples of each, but that would take up my time. I think what the bigger problem is that the town has outgrown the administration, and the problems are much more immediate and much greater in scale and scope of knowledge necessary to deal with them. So I don't think that the people that we have in charge of the biggest picture have the biggest exposure and capacity to do the jobs necessary. I think we need more than one town manager, or we need people in this department and that department. I don't think that we need to focus all of our decision making for Nantucket on one person's head. It needs to be distributed as well as communicated. So accountability needs to be publicly allocated, as well as all the other things that are on her evaluation: decision making, adaptability, integrity, and trust. You can't hold one person to steer the entire equation on their own and have everybody focus that one person on being perfect the entire time. It's not going to happen. So I think what the bigger problem is that we haven't evolved our leadership to adapt to our population or our workloads or our lifestyles or the expectations of all the tourists and the wealthy that come to the island every year on a seasonal basis. And we need to address a lot of those things far more immediately and far more openly than we have in 25 or 30 years. Thank you.
Brooke Moore.
I have spoken a lot. I have had, in my role as select board chair, had the opportunity to speak about the town manager's review. And that was the process of that was followed according to the way these things go. Each select board member had input. That input was aggregated into an aggregate score. And generally speaking, the town manager got very positive reviews from all 5 select board members. She reports to us, we are her bosses, and that is the process of review. I don't know any corporation in America that reviews by survey of the entire corporation. I know this is public, it's a little different, but that process was done among the people who are tasked to partner with the town manager in running the executive branch of our government. And we fulfilled that obligation. And I feel very strongly, in my experience in 3 years, and most recently in this current year as chair, that the select board has a great partner in our town manager. That said, the complexity of our town government grows with every passing year. The things that I observed and recorded in my evaluation are that the town manager has done an increasingly improved job of encouraging collaboration and working together among department heads and enterprise funds heads, so that projects like Lover's Lane, we don't pave a road and then dig it up for water later and then dig it up for sewer later. And sometimes things take longer, but that is because we're doing yeoman's work to collaborate and bring projects together and have all perspectives brought to play on some of these big projects. And so I believe the town manager has done an excellent job in that regard. She has made some incredibly great hires in the last few years in department heads. And my experience working with her is that she is open to listening, to changing her mind, and that every day each of us in the executive branch of town government has to be prepared to pivot to respond to new opportunities or new crises that happen and that take away from the to-do list. And so you're constantly chasing that to-do list all the time. I think the one thing we could leave more room for in the executive branch of town government is strategic thinking and long-term planning. I think we're often chasing our tails too much because of the complexity of town government now, that long-term planning and the quiet time to think. And our current town manager has acknowledged that and is making efforts in her allocation of her time to leave room for that. So that would be it for me.
Thank you very much. We're sort of caught in the middle here. I've got great questions from the audience about HDC and sewers to Nantucket and Pulpus, but we'll try to squeeze this one in real quick. Quick answers, please. This is from Bruce Balkin. What is the most important or pressing issue in regards to coastal resiliency? And we'll start with Mary Chalk. You're on mute.
Well, the 2 issues I'm aware of are most pressing is the end of Nantucket Road at the corner of Ames that gives access to the Smith Point neighborhood, and they are planting beach grass there, which is really good to see. And also the flooding at the steamboat wharf. And I really feel that we need to look at the impacts of these projects a little bit more thoroughly. The coastal resilience plan that was presented to the public recently is from Arcadis, and it's an engineering and consulting firm. And, and they are the same firm that did the preliminary environmental impact of the blade shatter on our environment and marine life. They omitted 2 very important segments in that report. They omitted the fact they did fail to say how much of this blade is still on the seabed, And they also failed to assess the immediate discharge of the microplastics into our waters. And so, and they have not given their comprehensive plan yet. So we're already engaged with this Arcadis, and when I look at the reviews of the coastal resilience projects, I'm not seeing a thorough environmental impact reports on those either. So
Thank you, Mary. We have to move on. Sorry. Brooke Moore, top most important or pressing issue, coastal resilience.
So the most pressing issues to my mind is public infrastructure, whether that's Washington Street, Easy Street, or other, or even Baxter, the utilities under Baxter Road. That we have to focus on protecting public infrastructure first, and then where it benefits private homeowners, that the planning for like Sheep Pond Road and other areas that are more for private protection we need to advise, but the financial burden needs to be borne in an appropriate way, where there's private benefit to infrastructure investment versus public benefit to infrastructure investment. So I would say it's not a particular project, but we are looking at, you know, a wealth of things that we need to be thinking ahead on, because this stuff takes long time planning. I sit on the Washington Street, Francis Street Beach project planning group with Matt, and the other thing is making sure that we are bringing local wisdom into the planning process for these projects, because outside consultants are critical for us in terms of the engineering expertise that we don't have, but local knowledge is equally as critical to bring to bear on these projects.
Thank you. Brooke Gibbs.
I think the most pressing things right now is the sewer beds on South Shore Road and out in Sconset, and utilizing something more resilient than beach grass and berms to stop the erosion along the South Shore and in Sconset. They're making tetrapods that they use in Europe that are little small things that look like concrete jacks that they can scale up to size 3 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, 15, that we could be building here on island and dumping off just off the break off around the island to stop the flow of the nor'easters and all the storms that come crashing into the South Shores. Most of those beaches are not swam at or swam in. So I think we could be putting small tetrapods along the South Shore in places under the water where no one can see them that stop the break and retain the sand as it flows over them instead of pulling it back out to sea. So I think the infrastructure we need to worry about is downtown and sea level rise and the South Shore and the sewer plants.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt Fee.
Yeah, I think I'm looking right here at an 1860 map on my wall, and when you look at how things have changed, you realize that change of the coastlines has been happening. It's increasing that speed, and so we're not going to stop it. I think the top priorities is how do we pay for it? How do we fairly allocate costs, whether it's public or private, as Brooke Moore discussed? And also, how do we run a process without the consultants necessarily that brings the public together like we're doing for, down on Washington Street? How do we, set up and run a process that the public is involved in, so that they can put their input and help us improve those? I think so. It's particular projects. There are there's projects that are Ames Avenue is one it's getting attention now. But I look also at SBPF. I look at Baxter Road. If we can't solve SBPF, I don't see how we're going to solve any of these others. And so, I think that the time and effort we've put there, hopefully we can find a path forward. I firmly believe that there's a win-win there with some strict rules and regulations that and a retreat eventually in 5 years, 15, 25 years. I think that if we have to be willing to have those hard conversations and find the right path forward for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Cliff Williams.
Yeah, when it comes to the coastal resiliency or the flooding or the tides rising, like Matt said, if we can't figure out Baxter Road, um, Easy Street, Washington Street, I don't know how you solve those problems of flooding unless you have a levee like they do in New Orleans. So, you got me. Other than erosion problems, the flooding problem is going to be an ongoing problem. To talk about betterments, I think there was a meeting because there was a design down for Washington Street where they were going to have betterments for the neighbors. People didn't even know about it and showed up. Question is, can the neighbors afford a betterment? Can they afford the private cost of whatever these ideas are, and are they going to work? Like I said, I run because I want to go to the low hanging fruit. I want to like figure out how to fix the landfill or patch the potholes. Tides rising, I have no idea.
You'll have a chance in just a minute to give us your closing argument. Thank you all very much. And we are now ready for the closing statements. And we'll go, let's see, we'll go Matt Fee first.
Hi, thank you. I think, as I said earlier, people know me. They may have strong feelings one way or the other. Hopefully, even if they disagree, hopefully they know that I'm accessible, that I'll work with everyone. My phone starts ringing at 4 a.m. and doesn't stop till 11 at night. I have institutional knowledge that I think is very important for the board. I remember, some of the things and what we did and why we did them. I know where some of the bodies are buried. I have experience now that I've been there, I think that experience in a lot of aspects is pretty important. And I ask for one of your 2 votes at coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cliff Williams.
Yes, as I stated before, I was born in Nantucket, raised in Nantucket. Did a lot of work around here when I was younger, widening Old South Road, building catch basins by hand back in the old days. I work at the airport for the FAA. I've been in unions. I've been through union negotiations. I was on the finance committee for 9 years. I know how the budget works. I know how government works to a certain degree. I think I bring all that expertise to the board. And like I said, I'm here to stay. I watch people come and I watch them go, and I see a lot of dumb decisions made, and these people don't have to pay for those stupid decisions that they've made. So hopefully I can improve the situation and make way for the next generation that's going to take over Nantucket. One of the biggest things I think I learned when I first started on the board was when they came over from the Cape, and they said, you're so lucky that your forefathers sewered the town of Nantucket, like the Cape, where they have a $6 billion problem. So we're probably not going to see the result of the bad decisions, but our grandkids are. So hopefully we can make the right ones, and I think I'm the right one for that job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Chalk.
If elected, I will bring a diversity of priorities to the Select Board. I will protect the public's right to transparency and input. We must not limit this. Our unique and cherished conservation properties, our marine environment, our famed identity are all under tremendous pressure. I will work hard to educate our state and federal agencies about our unique identity as a National Historic Landmark, our culture of traditional conservation and preservation, our tourism-based economy, and our need for their highest level of protections. With intense research and passion, I fought to raise awareness on the harmful impacts of offshore wind in an effort to protect our environment and community. I look forward to continuing this important work as a member of the Select Board in future large-scale project decisions. Thank you for your consideration. And if you want to learn more about me, please visit marychalk.nantucketselectboard.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke Moore.
So I've been at this for 3 years, and I think that I have demonstrated an unwavering commitment to lean into the work of the Select Board, whether it's the day-to-day management of the executive branch of the town of Nantucket, or to respond to emerging crises and doubling my time committed to it. Most people knew me as an affordable housing advocate before I ran for the select board. I continue to advocate and will continue to advocate for enough year-round housing so that we can have a healthy and vibrant community. It's important to me to have solid working relationships with others, to work collaboratively and to build consensus. And I'm not afraid to make hard decisions, some of which have been very unpopular. I respectfully ask that the voters of Nantucket allow me to serve them another 3 years, and I promise to continue to work as hard as I have in the first 3. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll close with Brooke Gibbs.
Thank you, Scott. Nantucket, I think you know what time it is. And I think it's time for us to change. And I think it's time for us to have a new direction. And I think it's time for us to have new leadership and new thinking and to have someone that's loyal to you and not to the ongoing conspiracies or the ongoing whatever. I think it's time that we stand up for ourselves and take care of ourselves and do for ourselves what we haven't been doing for 30 plus years. And I think it's time that we face the facts and that we choose someone else to give us our direction, because what's going on and what's been going on for so long is nothing more than our own fault for allowing it to happen. So I hope that everyone considers where we've been and where we're going and how important this election is to all of us and to everyone that comes here. And I hope that you choose wisely, and I hope that you choose with your heart and know that my family has served you for 360 years, and now it's my turn. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all 5 candidates for the select board. We wish you the best of luck. And we're going to turn now to the planning board candidates. Hillary Hedges Rayport and Liza Hatton. Opening statements, please. We'll start with Liza. You're still on mute. You're still on mute.
Oops, sorry about that. Good afternoon. My name is Liza Hatton, and I would like to thank the Nantucket Civic Association for hosting us today. I will tell you a little bit about myself so you can get to know me. I have been a year-round island resident for 14 years, and I've been coming to Nantucket seasonally since I was born. I'm a real estate broker, and I've had my real estate license since 2014. I also worked for a general contractor on the island, and I hold a construction supervisor license. Beyond my professional life, I contribute to the Continuing Education Committee for NARAB. I'm a member of the Nantucket Builders Association and the Sconset Civic Association, and I volunteer with the Sconset Clean Team and the Nantucket Garden Club. I have experienced Nantucket from many perspectives, which gives me a well-rounded understanding of the issues before the planning board. For example, my husband and I lived in employee housing on Old South Road for 8 years, so I understand the frustrations of traffic congestion in that area. Having trained for 5 marathons and numerous half marathons here, I am intimately familiar with the island's bike paths, traffic intersections, and land bank trails, and I have a clear sense of what works and what needs improvement. In 2019, we were fortunate to qualify for the Covenant program, and purchasing our Covenant home has transformed our lives. We are a testament to how smart planning can benefit community members. I am seeking a seat on the planning board because I've observed a lack of participation on town committees and boards among my generation. My flexible work schedule allows me the time necessary to dedicate to the planning board. I first expressed interest when I applied for an alternate position on the planning board last spring, and I've been going to meetings to ensure that I'm up to date on current applications and to add to my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary.
Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Civic League. I'm Hillary Rayport. Many of you know me from my past service on the Nantucket Historical Commission, and because I'm frequently writing letters and testifying for preservation and accountability in government. But you might not know my history or why I'm asking to be your representative on the planning board, so I just wanted to cover that a little bit. My Nantucket story begins with my husband's parents. Through his family, we have a 70-year connection to this island. In 2005, my husband and I fulfilled a longtime family dream of being able to own a home, which has been multi-generational for 20 years now, with our two sons and my incredible mother-in-law. At age 102, she still walks into town using her rolling walker. I'm running for planning board because I love Nantucket and I'm passionate about using the tools of long-range planning and thoughtful investment to create a sustainable Nantucket that retains the qualities that keep us all here to begin with. I'm extremely concerned about how we are planning for Nantucket's future. Increasingly, you can't get from A to B to get to your appointments. You can't get the services you need to go about your business. There's plenty of work, but no place for employees to live. Higher wages are eaten away by an even higher cost of living. If even longtime island residents don't see a future for their children on Nantucket, what kind of community will we have? There's a saying from the environmental reckoning of the 1970s, we have met the enemy and he is us, but we are also the solution. Think about the land bank and the historic district, two foundational planning tools from 1983 and 1955. Not everyone agreed on them at first, but community meetings, public consortiums, data, and most importantly, lots of listening to each other built consensus, and these ideas were adopted. We owe a debt to the people who came before us. Now it's our turn to look out for future generations. And I'm asking for your vote in service to this island. And I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll start with the questions now. This time we'll start with Jason first.
Okay, thanks, Scott, and hello to the planning board candidates. We just saw what happened at town meeting with short-term rentals and some of the zoning articles. We know the planning board has either sponsored or supported articles like Article 66 to incorporate short-term rentals into the zoning code, codify them in all residential districts, which gained a majority but did not pass at this most recent meeting. Do you support that approach? Did you support Article 66? Is that the path forward for the island? We know that there's a land court ruling probably coming, but what would be your approach? And did you support Article 66, and why or why not? Thank you.
We'll start with Hillary, and then we'll just go back and forth with each question. So Hillary, go first.
Yeah, so this is a really complicated question. I think people have been frustrated because they feel like the topic just goes on and we're not ever able to make an answer. I think that this discussion about short-term rentals, it's like a river, you never step into the same river twice. There have been a lot of moving pieces. We've made a lot of progress. We banned corporate rentals. We put in place the registry. And I think that there was both a feeling of consensus because we made that progress, but it's also just uncovered that we really have the hardest part to go. I think the solution is going to be listening and respecting the people who are in both camps, because the people who want to have short-term rental as a primary use island-wide, they're trying to protect their way of, how they make a living. And it's very important and it deserves respect. And the comments about our economy being linked to this, also extremely important. I mean, obviously we don't want to do anything that's going to set ourselves backwards and in economically. But the people who feel like this is an accessory use will be taken advantage of, will be commercialized, and that there's an incredible cost. People point to the tax on short-term rentals. That tax pays for costs that we incur. So just to bring my comments to a close, I think that I support the proposal that gets 2/3 of the vote, and neither side is there. I think that people want proof that the registry is going to actually work, and they want proof that we really have banned the corporations. And I think they're smart to wait. I think they're smart to want to see more of that proof. So I think we will get there, but it's going to take a little more time. And I think it's going to take more leadership from the planning department, which the fact that it's always citizens articles coming forward with solutions, I think that's a problem. I think we need more support from our professional planners on this topic.
Thank you. Liza?
Well, I agree with quite a bit of what Hillary said. If you look at our master plan from 2009, it points out that tourism is the main driver of our economy. So I feel like it's short-sighted to not accommodate for that in our zoning bylaw. It would be great if our community could come up with a compromise, because I feel like this has been a very divisive issue. It's wonderful that we've banned corporate ownership, and that we have a registration system, and that there's a hotline for people to call if they're concerned. I feel like those are all good first steps. But we need to find a way to incorporate it into our zoning bylaw so that we can then further regulate it, because at this point, we don't have a definition on our zoning code. Thank you.
Thanks. Before I turn it over to Dean, just a note for our audience on Zoom. If you have any questions, please submit them through the chat function. We need questions. Thanks. Dean, over to you.
Thanks. Good afternoon to the candidates as well. My question is, what do you think should be done to address the effects of the state's Affordable Homes Act on the island, specifically the advent of protected use accessory dwelling units, which clashes with our current town bylaws regarding accessory dwellings?
And that's for you first, Liza.
Okay. I think that it's great that we put a moratorium on tertiary dwellings until December 31st at town meeting. That's an important first step so that we don't have rampant development. But we need to find a way to incorporate ADUs further into our zoning bylaws. And I think that we're going to have to listen to what's coming down from the state and to town council to make sure that we're doing everything the correct way, but also protecting ourselves in the same time.
Hillary?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Dean. I think we have a problem that we're in a situation that's a problem that we didn't have to be in, because right now, other towns in Massachusetts have updated their zoning at their Springtown meeting, and we put in halfway measures that didn't stop the creation of these dwelling units on lots where they already have the maximum number of dwellings. I think we should have made a tertiary or a secondary, one or the other, one of these units, the protected use ADU. It's really technical, so I don't want to, lose the people who are listening. But the bottom line is we are already compliant with the spirit of what the state is trying to achieve, which is that a municipality cannot make it impossible for a person who has a residential lot to build a small accessory dwelling unit. We already do that. And the fact that at our town meeting, this became, some discussion where we need a moratorium, which, is actually not necessarily even enforceable, that could easily be challenged, but also doesn't solve the problem of having extra dwelling units in neighborhoods where we've said we don't want them. And it's not going to create any extra affordable housing. So specifically, I think it's an easy solution if we could just get it down on paper. I think we should make existing secondary dwellings the protected use ADU. We should convert them. If they're already there, they are the one protected use ADU. And then going forward, we should let people choose between a secondary dwelling of a certain size, maybe 1,000 square feet, something bigger than the protected ADU. And they can have that by right, or they can pursue a special permit if they want another ADU. We have to pay attention to the fact that you can't have extra dwelling units on lots unless it's by special permit. That's in the law. So we have some work to do, but there's so many towns that have done this already. We can get it done for special town meeting, but we absolutely cannot let it slide another town meeting.
Thank you. Jason, next question.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Yeah, the town is currently working on updating the master plan. From what you've seen of the existing plan, what would be most important to add to that? What's missing? What should be included in that update? What are some of your priorities that you're advocating for in this process? Thank you.
And Hillary reports first this time.
Yeah, so is the question about the update process to date or the 2009 plan?
Yes, the update and what you would like to see.
Oh, the
included.
update. Okay. So I'm very concerned about the update. You know, I've been advocating, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the legislation that passed at the special town meeting by 72% margin to update our planning commission with some different structure. That all came out of this view that we just weren't doing any long range planning and we had to get more long range planning done. I mean, long range plans are usually updated every 10 years. And here we are sitting with a plan that's 15 years old and our island is just completely different. So I'm really concerned about the update, but I'm also really grateful that it's happening. And, you know, my biggest concern about how this plan is going to come together is that the steering committee for our community plan is the 5 people on the planning board. And if you look at the 5 people on the planning board, it's not representative of the community. If you look at other towns, how they go about updating community plans, they typically have a really big steering committee that's not the planning board because planning boards have so many other things that they have to do. And you want people who are from, you want people who are young, you want people who are from different cohorts on the island, you want people representing different stakeholders, different groups, and you want 9 to 15 people at least. So we have this tiny steering committee, and what's happening is that we're not able to get the diversity and the numbers of people at the planning groups. It's sort of the same old high information voters that usually show up. So I could keep talking about the plan, but I'll just say, I think the plan is really, really important to guide the future of this island because you cannot have changes to your zoning unless it ties back to a vision and objectives in the plan. It's sort of formulaic because the plan has to meet the criteria of the state. And if we don't have the community input because we wanted to control the process and limit it only to the planning board and not have a big steering committee, we're going to be disappointed with the outcome, sadly.
Thank you. Liza?
Thank you. So I think there are a few things that we need to focus on for the master plan. Since 2009, climate resilience has become something that we're all aware of, which we weren't aware of in 2009. So I think that's something that we need to incorporate, as well as stormwater drainage. In addition, we definitely need to continue to focus on affordable housing and how we can incentivize the creation of year-round deed-restricted housing by private sector developers. In addition, I think that it's very important that we get a wide representation of people who live here to take part in the meetings and the events going along with the master plan. And I think that education is also an important part of that. I feel like most people aren't really aware of what the master plan is or what its goals are. And if we can communicate those to the community, hopefully we can get on the same page about what our path forward is. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean, do you have a second question?
Sure. A less technical one, a little bit more philosophical. When it comes to development, how do you balance the concept or the idea of kind of keeping Nantucket the way it is with the reality that the island's experiencing major growth and change?
So the planning board's responsible for following the subdivision control law. When it comes to waivers, there needs to be a community benefit that outweighs the negative impacts. I love the island because of its history and how we do preserve things here. But I'm not sure how much the planning board is how much their role is in that, and that's why we have the Historic District Commission. If we want to, if the community would like to limit development, we need to change zoning bylaws at town meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Rayport?
Yeah, thank you. I certainly agree with what Liza said, and I think it was very well put. The planning board has limitations. You know, people think that, oh, the planning board should do this and the planning board should do that. And the planning board's role is to enforce the Subdivision Control Act, endorse legal plans, and propose zoning, which has to be tied to community need. But I think we also have a planning commission, which does the long range strategic planning, and it should be a lot more engaged and active in the long range planning that it's been. But I guess I'll focus on one thing I think that we could do that will have a huge impact, which is the Wilkes Square Harbor Place area where the National Grid building is. I mean, I think of that as like kind of like a tectonic plate of Nantucket, and the pressure is just building up on it, and it will shift. And you know, there's going to be a tremendous amount of change right at the doorstep of our historic downtown, right at the doorstep of the, you know, the welcome mat of the island. And a lot of work has been done on that parcel. There was a very inclusive and professionally done plan back in, I want to say 2007, maybe. I could be wrong about the date, but then it's just kind of gone fallow, and you've got developers, you know, Nantucket, New England Development, Nantucket Island Resorts owns the parking lot and the Stop and Shop. And we have, as a community, we have a lot more power over that area than we are exercising. You know, a lot of it is subject to Chapter 91, which makes it for public benefit because it's a former tideland. That whole parking lot, which isn't managed at all, that's a public benefit parking lot. There should be a management plan. So I would say in terms of the, you know, how to keep Nantucket the way we want, it's a very complicated question, but I've tried to answer it to look at one parcel that has been undermanaged that could have just a massive effect on how we look, how we feel, how we present ourselves, where planning has a really important role.
Thank you. We have some questions from the audience. Lucy here writes, some members of the town council study group have suggested that the planning board should be appointed and not elected if we should move to town council form of government. Do you agree or disagree with that? Hillary?
I disagree. I understand the rationale of an appointed planning board, and it's certainly true that there are a lot of towns that have appointed planning boards. You know, it's also true, I'm going to argue against myself here. It's also true that most people don't want to run for planning boards. So, you know, I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of Liza for competing for this position, because if you look at who's on the planning board now, of the four people sitting, only one of them had to actually run against anybody. So I can understand why it would be called out as a board that should be appointed. But having studied this question of appointed versus elected, because, you know, I proposed legislation to actually have elected members on the planning commission, in addition to appointed members, I think on Nantucket, there are a lot of boards that are elected where other towns just don't do it that way. I don't know if a lot of people listen to the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Committee, but they had a robust discussion about the importance of elected positions on Nantucket and the damage that can be done by vested interests with priorities that aren't consistent with the mission of boards, you know, replacing people who have qualifications with other more compliant people. It happened to me. It's happened on the Concom. And you know, the Shellfish Board was also proposed to be by the Town Council Study Committee to be appointed instead of elected, and they were vehemently against it. So I think on Nantucket, elected with planning board is the right way to go.
Liza?
So I'm not really sure how to answer this. I think that it's good to have elected positions because it makes sure that the people who are on the board are have a vested interest in it, and that the community stands behind them. But going back to my own experience, when I pulled papers to be the alternate on the planning board, I was really daunted by the entire concept of running for an elected seat. So I put myself out there because it seemed like a more accessible way to take part in town government. So I do think that having elected positions does limit the amount of people who get involved. But I don't know. I do think it's more representative if you have the community vote on who they would like to have represent them. Thank you.
Thank you. Charity Benz would like to know what your 3 top priorities would be if you're elected. Let's start with Liza.
My top priorities would be to bring a fresh perspective to the planning board. I want to, and I hope that my candidacy or my role on the planning board might encourage other people to step forward who are local and want to be engaged. I think that transparency is really important, and the willingness to communicate what is going on, because I feel like sometimes people feel like the wool's being pulled over their eyes, and the more you can communicate and explain why you're making certain decisions or why you have to do certain things, maybe that will foster community understanding so that we don't get to places where people are upset over things that maybe there was nothing that could be done about it. So I think communication is very important.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hillary Rayport.
Yeah, so I would say a top priority is completing the master plan with integrity, similar to the recents that Liza cited, which is we just can't get to a place. We have such a problem with trust in this community. We cannot get to a place where we wrap up this plan and people feel like, oh, they didn't even know it was happening or their voice wasn't heard. So completing the master plan with integrity and inclusivity is important. Another priority would be building capacity for more proactive planning because, Matt Fee and Brooke Moore both mentioned this in the select board talk, where we have got to be more proactive and more strategic. And when you get down to planning, you can't just have ideas. Like you have to have ideas and you have to have the data and analysis to support them. I've recently completed a planning degree. Actually, I have a master's now in preservation planning and preservation studies, actually, is the degree. And one of the courses I took was in geographic information systems, where it's just incredibly powerful, the analysis you can do. And we have a GIS department on Nantucket that's very strong. So we really just need more people. We need more planners and we need more people so that we're not always turning to consultants for things, and we have more ability in-house to bring the arguments. And I think, if I guess I kind of mentioned community planning. So I would say, let's work on some of the small things. What are the small things we could do right now? The 2009 plan, one of the visions was parking management. We had a parking management committee. We have parking priorities in the strategic plan, but we never seem to be able to get anything done with parking. I mentioned that lot by the Stop and Shop. There are 113 spots in that lot. It's under a license with the Department of Environmental Protection. There's no management plan for that lot. So I think there's maybe just some small things that we could pick off that wouldn't be expensive, but would make a huge difference in people's lives.
Thank you. Just got a question in. Do the candidates believe there needs to be more oversight of the Plus department? Hillary, we'll start with you.
Well, the Planning Commission, so not everybody understands this, but the NP&EDC is the Planning Commission, and they are a board in the same way the select board hires and manages and reviews and sets the salary for the town manager. The NP and EDC hires and manages and sets the salary and everything for the planning director, but only for her activities regarding planning. So all of her activities regarding managing the building department and the HDC and the ZBA, for all of those, she reports to the town manager. But yet the town manager doesn't hold her contract. So I'm not sure what the person asking what the question about oversight meant, but I think I agree with Matt. You know, we don't have a planning department, we have a permitting department. And we have the great fortune that we have a planning commission, which is one of the state's 13 regional planning agencies. So it's very powerful and it's able to employ people. And we could have that group does not have any role in oversight of the building department, but the buck stops with that group in terms of oversight of planning and planning capacity. And yes, I think there could be more, and it would be a number one thing that I would bring to the table. Thank you.
Thanks. Liza?
I honestly don't know enough about the issues or what the concern is with the oversight. I'm aware of the NP and EDC and wanting more representation on that advisory board, which I am definitely supportive of. I think that that's one of the biggest issues that our town government has, is that it doesn't represent everybody who lives here. But I really can't speak to my opinions on that because I don't know enough. I'm sorry.
Okay, I think with that, we're out of time. So we'd like to turn to closing statements, and Liza, you're up first.
Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself to the community. If you vote for me on May 20th, I pledge to be fair and reasonable, transparent, and collaborate with existing board members and town staff to make sound decisions for the community that we all love. Thank you.
Hillary Report.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was a really wonderful discussion. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed hearing from Liza because I don't know Liza, and I'm just thrilled that we're having a competitive race, that we're getting ideas out, that we all obviously, you know, the thing that I think is going to save us at the end of the day is how much everybody loves Nantucket. It just comes across, and this is our superpower. We have to connect over this. I'm also really happy that regardless of who wins this race, there's going to be a woman on the planning board. I think that's something that does bring a different perspective, and it's something that will be missed. Of course, it is a competition, and I would like to be that woman. So I hope that what comes across is my experience, what I stand for. I have no conflicts of interest. I have no reason to serve other than just wanting to help this island. And my goal, if you vote for me, my goal is to bring more balance back to this island and more proactive planning that helps us stay ahead of our problems rather than constantly just reacting to them. As your planning board representative, I will never forget that the planning board and the planning department work for you, and that planning is about community. And I pledge to bring the whole community back into the community plan. And I hope to earn your confidence and your vote, because we have to take care of Nantucket so Nantucket can take care of us.
Thank you both, and good luck to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now turn to the school committee. Two candidates for one seat, Vince Murphy and Matthew Tara. Good to see you, Matt.
Yep.
So we'll start with opening statements. Matthew, we'll start with you.
Great. Thanks, Civic Association, for hosting this. My name is Matt Tara. I'm running for school committee. Brief background. I've lived on the island year-round with my family now for 5 years. Originally from the suburbs of Boston, proud graduate of a Massachusetts public school. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in finance, and moved to the island about 5 years ago and have been around Nantucket for quite some time. I've got married here. I've run a small business on the island for a handful of years. And recently, I currently invest in kind of privately held technology companies. So that's my background. I have two young children. I have a 7-year-old boy who's a current first grader at Nantucket Elementary School, and I have a 4-year-old daughter who is a preschooler at Montessori Children's House. I'm currently the treasurer of Montessori Children's House and have in that role for the past 3 years, and have overseen the budgeting and almost about $1 million in capital projects at the school. So that's been a kind of an informative experience in the early part of our child's journey in the school system on Nantucket. The reason I'm running for school committee, and I'm probably a new face on the street here in terms of, not being a known person like a lot of other people that have, raised their hand and are running for select board and all these other positions. It's out of two real main concerns. I think the number of times that the quality of our school system and a child's experience from pre-K through high school and the level of discussion that the town spends on that, we spend about 30% of our town budget, almost $40 million on our school system here annually. And we rarely talk about the quality of schools here. And there's almost 1,800 students that are in our school system. And the reality is our schools have changed dramatically over the past 20, 25 years. I don't know if we as a town and as a school system have managed this change appropriately. And there's concern I hear from parents, including myself, on the results of our school system. Our test scores in the early part of elementary school are very low, probably in the bottom quartile of the state of Massachusetts. And more parents that I talk to are nervous about the quality of our educational system here. And as our schools go, especially our public schools, go this island, and we talk about affordable housing, we talk about coastal resiliency, we don't talk about the quality of education here for our students. And in my mind, Nantucket won't be a good place to live if we can't send our kids to public schools that are working for entire families. And so I'm running for school committee because I think I have the background. I'm a parent. I've been involved in the school system. And I've spent a lot of time in my professional career with budgeting, with data-driven decision-making, which is really an essential part of the school. And I'm also, I'm not a town employee, and I'm not somebody who, is also working for the town. And, we are going to lead another union negotiation in the next couple of months as well. So an independent voice for that, speaking for parents and results. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. Vincent Murphy.
Thank you very kindly. Just get my thing going. Hi, everyone. So before I get started, I'd like to wish luck and congratulations to my daughter and my son who are currently at the high school for their dance recital. Well done to Hazel and Rory, and I'm sorry I missed it. So for everyone that doesn't know me, I'm Vince Murphy. Many of you will have guessed by now that I'm not local. I washed ashore from Ireland by way of Arizona and arrived here in 2016. My wife and I worked for the Murray Mitchell Association, and that's the reason we came here, and then fell in love with this island. This was also around the time that we started our family, and now we have 3 children aged 2, 4, and 6. My eldest is also in first grade in the elementary school, and my middle child will be starting in the kindergarten in September. In 2018, I got my first job with the town in Nantucket as the Coast Resources Technician. Later in 2019, I became the Coastal Resilience Coordinator and began development of the long-term and end-of-century plans for Nantucket. We've talked about coastal resilience a little bit here today. I was one of the initiators. In 2022, I became the Sustainability Programs Manager and continued planning for Nantucket's future. Sustainability is the even balance of economics, environment, and social needs. A school runs under some similar principles. We need the schools to be economically sustainable and to be places for social good. Teachers are the primary managers of the school environment, and the school committee supports teachers through policy management. I am currently filling out the last 6 months of Pauline Procha's term. She was formerly on the committee and resigned in September, I believe. And then I was appointed by school committee and the select board last November. This time on school committee has been an exceptional training period for me, and I have been coached by school administration, the superintendent, and learned a tremendous amount on the job. And I have also undertaken the required state training programs for new school committee members. In these 6 months, I have taken a particular interest in school lunches, English language learners, and our immigrant communities that all need more support. My background working for the town and understanding our local systems, working as an independent scientist for about 15 years, and working in universities and other educational institutes around the world has given me the skills and abilities to understand budget management and good policy management, as well as the interpersonal skills to make a difference and oversee the sustainable management of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. First question will go to Jason.
Thanks, Scott, and hello to the candidates. As a father of 2 kids in the public schools, I just want to thank both of you guys for stepping up. It's a tough job, but I guess I'll start off with a topic that I think is on the minds of a lot of parents with kids in the school, and it's about devices and cell phones. The Massachusetts Attorney General has introduced legislation that would impose bell-to-bell restriction on access to cell phones and personal electronic devices during school hours. And I know a lot of states are going this way. The Vineyard has implemented something like this. Do you support such a restriction on cell phones in schools?
We'll start with Vince.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Jason. So the current system, as it applies in the schools, it varies between, say, the middle school and the high school, is that phones can't be in use, and sometimes they're in pouches on the back of the door so that they're out of reach and cannot be used. That is good when you think about it, because children and students are in school to learn. The distraction that we all face from extra screen time can detract from how well the children learn. It's also fairly common practice for children to have their phones for lunchtime so they can communicate, and they're not out of the way during that time. So I can understand the need to get even stricter, because there's other issues that are arising in classrooms where where students have smartwatches and they are within Bluetooth range of their phone, and they're able to check their texts on their phone or just do one-word responses. So that is still causing the same issue. So we're going to have to get clever on this and look at how we can increase our students' time and ability to learn. For some subsets of students, it might be still a necessary device to have for communication issues with parents or with teachers for multilingual issues. But I can certainly understand and appreciate the need when we discuss going for bell to bell. I do wish that I was able to communicate with my 6-year-old during the school day, but I also know that she's exceptionally well taken care of and in an extremely safe environment. And if I have an issue, I call the school. I never do, but I know it's an option. At the moment, we'll have to see the exact wording of what the state is going to bring forward, but I can see benefits through it, yes.
Matt?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Jason. I have a really quick answer followed by a longer answer. We should absolutely be banning devices in the Nantucket public school system from bell to bell. It's the easiest decision we can make as parents and as a community. And I'm kind of shocked that the school committee hasn't been more aggressive on this issue, because every single day there is more data around the harm that phones do to children in learning and their social and emotional health. And there's no data that's coming out that's making that look better. And if there's one place where we need to focus on results, learning, and being free of phones, it's at school. A lot of children And I think as parents, we understand this. Devices are a part of our life, and it's TV, it's an iPad, and a lot of that happens at home. And, we as a school can't control that. And people should do what they want to do and how they want to deal with their children, whether it's an iPhone or a tablet. But at the school system here, we need to make it a place where cyberbullying, texting, Snapchat, TikTok, that's not distracting people from what their main job is to learn and to build a community with their friends. We're also a small island. Parents aren't going 50 miles away. If you need your parents, give them a call. So I think getting rid of devices in our school system is really, really important, and it may be one of our most urgent issues. And the problem's going to be, when they say they ban phones, who raises their hand and hates it the most are the parents. I can't talk to Sarah, about what she's doing, and I want to check in and this and that. And so we're going to have to build a communication and a pipeline to the parents and kind of get their support as well. Because I although the kids won't like it, the parents usually hate it more. So that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you. The next question goes to Dean Geddes.
Hi, good afternoon to the two candidates. I had a question, and Matthew, you touched on this a little bit in your opening statement, but MCAS scores, the intermediate middle schools were below state averages when they were tested last year. How much thought do you put into standardized testing, and what can be done to improve scores?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Scores are a tough thing to talk about, right? Because they're a result of a lot of things that happen. They're the bottom of the funnel. They're results of all the things that are happening, how often people go to school, the type of student you have, the education they're receiving at the school. So I want to caveat this answer in saying that tests aren't everything, but tests are really important. To be clear, I don't think people know this. Last 80% of our students in 3rd grade in MCAS are partially or not meeting the expectations set by the state of Massachusetts. So it leaves us about 20, 25%, I think it's about 20 to 23% that are meeting. And we only had, as far as I could tell, one student that exceeded expectations. And I believe it was only in one subject matter. So we had 1 out of 135 students, plus or minus, that exceeded the state expectation. And we had almost, do the math, almost approaching 100 students who didn't even meet the expectation. So something isn't working right. And it's not a criticism to the teachers. It's not a criticism to the kids, but we're not even at the average. And so I think we need to just examine that. I think testing is really important. We dropped the MCAS in 10th grade. I think that was, I personally wouldn't vote for something like that because I think we have to have accountability in our school systems. I know there's reasons why the teachers didn't support that, and I think there are stories around that. But I look at our test results as the product of what we're doing at the school. And I don't think our school is broken. It just needs improvement. And we need to focus on excellence so that parents have conviction and are interested in being part of the Nantucket public school system. Every year there are more students who don't go to Nantucket High School because they don't think it's a quote unquote good enough high school, or are choosing private schools as an alternative to the elementary and the middle schools. And that's a trend of people voting with their feet on these results that are in MCAS. And so as a town, we need to focus and take it seriously that these results aren't just throwaway. They're showing deficiencies in how our students are learning. And it's something we need to focus on. So
Thank you. Vince Murphy.
Thank you very kindly, Scott. So yes, we are not quite in the bottom quarter, but we're kind of skewing that direction. We are always looking for improvements. The school committee has been looking and taking in information on this and trying to understand how the school committee, through its mechanisms, through policy, can help out. But we also have to understand that there's been some pretty interesting and pretty major changes at the state level. MCAS is no longer a requirement for high school graduation. We're having to shift to a new program where each school district must develop its own program. That in itself is a very interesting scramble that we've had to deal with at school committee this year. And we've taken advice from Massachusetts Association of School Committees. It's throughout the state. It's a state level organization. And we've looked towards other high schools on the Cape, along the Cape and the South Shore, to try and understand how each school committee is going to do this so that we can graduate our high school students. And that is something that we've developed a set of policies and procedures for so that we can graduate our students this year. However, these students at high school level in their final years are still required to undertake MCAS testing. Where is the stake for you to put in effort if it's no longer a requirement for your graduation? So that has led to possibly an unnecessary decline in MCAS scores because it's no longer a requirement. That's a state level thing that got voted on at Beacon Hill. I think it was even in just September. So this is a new landscape where we're looking at declining scores in the last few rounds, where this was something that was brought upon by state legislation. That doesn't detract from the fact that we still must, by requirement, undertake the MCAS testing at every grade. There's all kinds of reasons why we have issues. We have more than the state average English language learners, and that is something that we're always working to improve. We have an entire department within the school that looks to evaluate and progress all of our English language learners at every level. And they're making huge inroads. And it doesn't matter if you join as a kindergartner or as a 12th grader, there's going to be support for you, and they can help you work towards the exam results and all the other testing through the year so that you can continually improve. The way that the school works at the moment is you can have to show consistent progress, or there's meetings with your parents, and it gets a little bit dicey for the student, but they have to show progress. So we are using every tool at our disposal in a changing landscape that the state has provided to us as of last fall to try and rectify some of these test score issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, do you have another question?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. You guys have both talked about some of the challenges that the district has. The school has a $43 million budget, talked about some of the challenges and resource-wise. Does the school need additional resources beyond what it's getting now? And how do you direct those resources? You know, we've talked, there's a new building potentially on the horizon. There's the playing field issue that has not been resolved, but also a lot of things that you guys have talked about in terms of the academics and the test scores. Does the school need more resources, and where's the best way to direct those to what areas?
Vince, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Scott. So yes, there was an allocation at town meeting. I think it was part of Article 8 for $43.7 million that was approved without the article being called. It costs a little bit more than that to run our school system. It's actually closer, just a little over 51 million, if I remember rightly. The remaining budget that doesn't come from the town allocation comes from various state and federal level provisions so that we can have funds for those things. Oh, my children are home. Hi, guys. Sorry, beg your pardon. And once we have that extra funds, then we know what we can parse out and how to divvy up our funds for the year. There's also a $600,000 budget that goes for the community schools. So we have a very broad set of provisions, and we must look at how to do these things. Obviously, salaries are a substantial part of the budget, and life on Nantucket is not cheap. And in order to keep and retain teachers, we must pay them an appropriate wage for life on this island. That's something that is always going to come through for negotiations. And I remember it mentioned towards the start that it would be a question for a town employee. Yes, I'm a town employee, but I'm outside of unions, so there is no conflict for me. Just put that out there. Then we must think about, well, what do we need? What are our provisions? What are our facilities? We have everything from teachers, principals, classroom assistants, maintenance and facilities staff, and they do what they can. We also have pretty interesting obligations, contracts and obligations that I've been reviewing as part of one of the subcommittees I sit on. They're real interesting. We spend a lot of money, and then when you ask where some of these funds are going, it turns out most of the time they're always under. They ask for some money, they won't get the full amount that they need, and then they just buy what they can. For the sake of argument, do we ever have enough basketballs? Probably not, but we make do with what we have. So we're already in a restricted scenario a lot of the time. We do spend a lot of money in our schools, but we probably could do with more. Any organization could, and this is no exception. When it comes to the redevelopment or upkeep and upgrade of facilities, show me a place that isn't constantly trying to make itself better. We can't allow our students to go to school in tumble down facilities. We do need safe environments for our children. We must make sure that they are in good condition, and buildings are not meant to last forever. The average life expectancy for a normal home is 50 to 80 years, more on this island because of material shortages. But we also can see, I don't want to drag in other things, but for our island home, a facility that was built in the early 80s, that's now in need of replacement. We want to have longevity planning for these kind of things, and the school is no exception. So we also have to look at our sporting facilities. Our whalers, they need a good pitch, and they need to have integrated facilities. If you want to have other activities such as track and field, they must be integrated into the same place. You can't have them in separate locations. We need to consider all of these things before we move forward. And these are other expensive things that are being looked at, not progressing at the moment. They need to be need some assistance, some more oversight, and that's one of the jobs of school committee. We evaluate everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Matt?
Yeah, so I'd approach this, there's three main issues in terms of capital spending in our schools I think need to have a spotlight on them. One is our facilities. I mean, if you've driven by or been in the schools, there's no doubt that there's a need for an upgrade. I think the next one scheduled is a new middle school, which has been floated to be an $85+ million project. I think as a member of the school committee, starting to really focus that and building consensus in the community where we're faced with a number of other capital projects that have hit town meeting with different levels of enthusiasm. I think that's a main goal. So driving the facility upgrades and the new buildings that we need, our district has expanded drastically over the past, again, 20 years. And so it's not just a matter of the facility quality, it's just the number of students. And so that would be one area. The second area is the fields. I do think there's a feeling amongst parents and students that our high school, middle school fields aren't up to par with what they're playing on in the Cape and other schools. And I think the PFAS issue with the field obviously was a barrier, but just designing that as a complex where our students can enjoy and have a higher quality feel. I mean, our football stadium, for a town as proud as we are of our football legacy here, our stadium leaves a lot to be desired. The other piece of it is the teachers. And I really support paying our teachers not just a living wage, but a wage which they feel proud of. The only thing I would ask as a school committee member is that we, as their salaries go up, we also get, increased, quality of education. And I think all of our teachers are obviously, committed to that. But, in my mind, it's always a negotiation of how much are we going to pay incrementally, and then what is the school system going to get? And so I would always support, putting more funds there in the budget towards teacher compensation. And then I think the other piece of the budget, and I think Vince did a nice job touching on this, is just efficiency. Where is our money going? Where are dollars going? And has the school committee in the past, with the experience on it, had folks that have really thought about why are we spending this for that? And I think to me, that's a key driver. We spend in this school district a ton of money per student on a per student basis. A lot of that's because of the increased cost of doing business on Nantucket. But where people ask me, is it a money issue? And the answer is hard because it's a yes and no. Sure, if we had more money, we have better classrooms and more teachers and this and that. The answer would be yes, but money does not solve this entire issue. So I do think, though, the school committee has been not maybe as aggressive as they could be in asking the town for more money. and justifying that as well along with the ask. So, if elected to school committee, I would leave the charge on being ambitious with our spend, but also being respectful of the taxpayer dollars, knowing that, this is the most important money this town spends on educating our youth. So I think a dollar more is better than a dollar less.
Thank you. Dean, do you have a final question for the candidates?
Sure. I want to ask, do you think the school has the resources required to address the significant number of English language learners we have? Have we been able to meet that challenge, and how, if at all, can it be improved going forward?
That's for you first, Matt.
Yeah, so I think the school system, and this is from my perspective as a parent, I think the school system has done a good job of pushing resources in any child who has some kind of deficiency, whether it be language, learning style. We have a large percentage of our children on an IAP program, which is basically a learning assistance program. In some of the schools and grades, it can be 30, 40, 50% of students that are on these kind of programs. So there's no doubt that it's something that has caught the attention. People know it's an issue and know it's a challenge. My biggest concern is, do we have the right kind of teachers and leadership that have been involved in districts that are as diverse as ours? 20 years ago, 95% Caucasian graduating classes here. That is no longer the case. We're a diverse school system. Town and the school is better for it, but with that has come some really unique challenges. And I think we need to continue to hire leadership that has worked in urban school systems, extremely diverse school systems, that understand how to meet those challenges. And the one thing I will say that is the most frustrating part, having a school system that's 50%, Spanish speaking at home, Jamaican, Eastern European, that's a strength of our school system. And we should view that as we're just trying to get these kids to quote unquote graduate. My biggest frustration is, I don't care if you just came from El Salvador, you came from Jamaica, you came from Bulgaria, or you've been living here for 50 years and your family has. What we need to focus on is excellence in our school system, is having excellence at all grade levels, and not just my one frustration with the Spanish speaking or other language is there's this fascination with the average, with the standard. And as a school committee member, what I'm focused on is excellence at all levels. And that means the highest levels as well. And I think we've forgotten that a little bit in our school system. And that would be a real focus. We need excellence, because you can't have a school system that's focused around mediocrity or the average. So that would be my take on it. It's certainly a challenge in our school system.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Vince will do just fine. So lots to take in there. Where to start? So we have, as has been said many times by Matt, quite correctly and entirely so, a very diverse school system. And luckily, there's a lot of immigrants that are bringing a lot to the Nantucket melting pot. 21% of our students are English language learners. We saw that in a presentation at school committee, I think in March. But that's at the very base level. Then we have various levels and through all the grades, so that if a kindergartner or a 12th grader comes in, they're going to get the assistance. We have a tremendous system within the school to help kids both in the classroom and outside of the classroom to build English proficiency so that they can get to their exams, so they can take their exams and perform to the best of their abilities. So we do have the infrastructure in place. We do have a rotating population of people. That's another issue. In terms of our school population, we have about on Tuesday night, I saw the actual number, 1,723 students is the current enrollment in the 4 schools. So that's what we have at the moment. But the ethnic diversity, as Matt already pointed out, is now for the Hispanic and Latin population, they are the majority. And that is what we're trying to assist. There's also, in one presentation, we saw that there was a weak correlation between English language learners and our Latin and Hispanic communities. And we're doing everything we can to assist, but it's not just singly to them. We have a lot of others that are also categorized as English language learners. We also have to understand that it's expensive. And the school committee only does three things, really. We undertake budgets and we set policy. We need to provide the money and have the policy. If we can't do direct oversight of the English language learner department, that is solely the responsibility of principals and teachers, giving them the facilities of budget and tools so that they can assist our English language learners is how the school committee affects this change over time. Look, let's call a spade a spade. I'm an immigrant as well. I have an accent and I have an unusual phrase structure, particularly for some sentences. I'm not going to even try to pretend that I understand our Latin and Hispanic communities or other communities, but I do understand the immigrant experience. That is something that is a real value that I'm bringing to this, and it's one of the big three things that I'm trying to help with. I'm just lucky that I'm in a position with fairly good English, not the best, but okay, enough to be able to present, put across a cogent point, and then find ways through policy and budget to help our English learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, time for your closing statement. Vince, you go first.
Sure thing. Let me scroll.
Yep.
Here we go. Thank you, Scott. I wish to continue the good work I have started with school committee and to continue to refine and reshape the school committee for effective and sustainable oversight of all district school operations. I have made good progress in assisting with improving school lunches and in reviewing about 35 of the 267 existing school policies. The start of leading is about listening. Whether it's listening to presenters or or public comment at school committee, listening to the issues parents bring up at either pickup time or at the grocery store or on the street, or even when people call or email me, as I regularly receive. Acting and advocating for change, and improvement is the way to make our schools better for island natives and recent immigrants alike without prejudice in a safe and supportive environment. Thank you very kindly and good luck to Matt as well. And thank you to the Civic League for hosting.
Thank you, Vince. Matt?
I decided to run for school committee after thinking about it for a couple months. For one thing, I think the education, specifically in Nantucket Public Schools, could be a lot stronger. And, school committee in the past, I don't know how many cycles, it's been an uncontested seat. And it hasn't been a part of this island experience that has had enough focus on it. And I'm running to create a school system that is rooted in one thing, excellence. Well, two things, excellence, one, and opportunity, second. Why excellence? Excellence means something different for everybody, but for every child, it's reaching their utmost potential. And when you do that, people will be happy to live here and send their kids to our public school system. What I've seen and what the trend has been is that there's a feeling on the town that the schools, although good, aren't great yet. And I'd love to bring that back to our town. It's so important. As somebody who's run a business here, someone who has kids in the school system, myself being involved in the preschools here that are private, I see just the tremendous opportunity, but challenges that we face here. And if electing someone like me will bring an outside voice who's a parent, who cares deeply about outcomes for our kids, who's data-driven, who is committed to making changes, not incrementally, but important changes after thorough thought. That first question about phones, this district hasn't acted quick enough for what could be a really, looking back on it 20 years from now, it'd be like having, it'll be like what smoking was in the 50s. And so making important changes that impact our students, driving excellence in our school system. And at the end of the day, if elected and come to 1 term or 10 terms, what I would like people to say about my tenure in the school committee is I was committed to their children having better outcomes than when I started. And they say, hey, you really improved the school. Our fields are better. We have a new middle school. Oh, wait, instead of having 75% of third graders barely meeting the state standard, we now have 55% are meeting the state standard. Those are the impacts that are data driven that I'd like to be a part of. And I offer a really independent voice. What I want is have great outcomes for my children and the children that follow them. So I hope I have your support come election day. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you both very much, and the best of luck to both of you. And with that, we've reached the end of our forum. The Civic League would like to thank the candidates for their insights on the issues and the frank discussion of their positions. We also thank them for their dedication to the Nantucket community. We would also like to thank Nantucket Community Television for their wonderful dedicated staff, especially Sophia today, who helped us greatly. From the Civic League, I would personally like to thank Co-President Charlie Stott, Peter Morrison, Mary Warrow, Maureen Phillips, and Rick Atherton, whose hard work and insights made this forum possible. And finally, we'd like to thank you, the voters, for your participation today. Please remember that while we are all entitled to our opinions, and to paraphrase Coretta Scott King, your opinions don't matter if you don't vote. So please express your opinion in the most effective way possible by voting on May 20th. Voting is a fundamental right of democracy, but it is only as effective as your participation. Thank you all again. A reminder, this forum was recorded and will be available for replay on YouTube very shortly. This concludes our forum. Would all the participants please now mute their mics and turn off their cameras, as we will be live for another minute while NCTV puts a wrap on the production. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.